at 15, this decision that you cannot talk to your mom happens, and you were not even there?
I was not there, and nor did I know.
Was somebody there representing your viewpoint?
Not my viewpoint, no.
Really?
No. My best interest is what I hear, but not my viewpoint.
All right. Do you think at 15, your viewpoint should have been represented? And I'm not somebody who's there to represent your best interest. Should you have had somebody in that room that says, no, I speak on her behalf. Makita wants this.
Yes.
You know, I might agree with you guys, it's a terrible idea, but I'm advocating for my client. There is nobody like that, right?
No, there was not. And I strongly, in the pit of my soul, believe that I needed someone there.
If you haven't guessed by now, one of our passions is trying to help foster kids, become great adults, and try to help the system change a bit, to help them. A beautiful example of someone who the foster system somehow did not completely screw up. Makita Cotto, thank you for being with us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
You've got such a powerful story in that you went in as a foster kid at 5, and you aged out, which means you weren't adopted and you didn't go back to mom. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Why did you go in at 5? You don't mind me asking?
Sure. No.
What terrible thing did you do at 5 years old?
You know, it's that headstrong in me. You know, my mom was a big drug dealer. And so frequently she would actually, the way that I made contact with the system is she would forget to pick me up from school. And so, you know, you'd stay at the school till 6:30, and they'd call the state to come and get you, and we would go to these shelters. And so, like, my journey through foster care was in and out until I was about 13, and then I stayed in for that.
So let me see if I've got this. So mom wouldn't come and pick you up because she's out doing business or whatever she was doing. And then, so you'd end up someplace. The next day, would you be back with mom? Was it? You
know, sometimes it was just a quick, you need a place to lay your head. We found your mom. You would go. I think after probably the third time was when they were like, okay, we probably need to do some deeper looking into what is occurring.
By the way, you say this so professionally. I would be in tears right now because I can't imagine anything more terrifying for me at 5 years old than mom not picking you up and having to go sleep in some strange place.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say that it wasn't something that was second nature to me. So in addition to sleeping at shelters, my mom would drop us off at friends' houses. And so I never really, stability was never something that I knew. So it traumatizing and not fair and all the things, yeah. And it wasn't anything that I hadn't adjusted to.
How long did it take for you to adjust to that kind of uncertainty?
You know, that's a good question. I think that it is something that I've always carried with me and something that I've accepted. So I can't tell you when. I can just tell you it's just something deep ingrained in me.
Okay. All right. So continue on with the story. So after a few years of in and out, then you got into the system full time. Would that be the right way to put it?
That would.
And why?
My mom, the FBI raided our house when I was 7 years old. You know, door came flying off the hinges, FBI guns. I was in a princess nightgown.
Oh, my Lord.
And so they came in, they took us, and we went to a foster home probably we were in a foster home for about 4 or 5 years, went home for a very short stint. And then my mom just kind of was like, I'm not going to fight you guys anymore.
When you say fight you guys not being the kids, you guys being the system.
Being the system.
What was she fighting for?
Her independence, her voice. She was fighting for, she was a mini kingpin. You know, she ran stuff.
Put some meat on that. What do you mean a mini kingpin?
I had a fur coat when I was 4.
Well, who doesn't?
I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Did you really?
I did. I had a fur coat when I was 4 years old.
So this woman had a lot of cash on and off, I imagine.
A lot of cash on and off.
Did she love you? Does she love you?
I think so.
But she couldn't care for you.
That is a loaded question. And that is the question that I've always struggled to kind of define. I was always clean. I was always healthy. I was always happy. I was always
Really?
with a roof over my head. There were times when we were homeless, or there were times when I had to sleep in a shelter with my mom, but I was never neglected. The way that I view her inability to parent was to put somebody else before herself. And so, but she made sure we had our basic necessities.
So, I don't know how you're going to answer this one. Was it good for you that foster care came and took you and put you someplace else for those many years?
You know, I wonder that all the time. I will say yes, and I will say no. The reason I say yes is my mom had a lot of her own childhood trauma that she projected onto me. And because I was a very different person than she was in terms of my drive and being headstrong and where I wanted to go, we butted heads. But I also am like, I butt heads with my teenage daughter too. So like, is that, but then no, because I think about all the homes that I was in.
How many different homes were you in?
I was in probably 15 plus homes over the course of.
15. Mm-hmm. And how many years were you in?
From 5.
I say in as if you were in jail,
Right.
but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, from 5 to 18 with some short stints. And
So after 13 years in the system, and you lived in 15 different places.
Yeah.
I don't know how you emotionally survive that.
I mean, that is the thing about like kids, right? Like kids are resilient. And so you just find a way to make.
Yeah, I don't think kids are resilient. I think they're just ignorant. They just don't know that this is not normal.
That is also true, right? Like that's all I knew was to be bounced around from like the years I had with my mom, coupled with the years in foster care. That is true. That is all I knew. But I think like, because I was also in all of those homes, I was in very few homes with people that looked like me. My foster parents were all white. And so I lost a lot of culture. I lost a lot of roots with people that do look like me. And frankly, I never found a place that I belonged. And so I do wonder, like, which one would have been better? Which one was, I know where I ended up, but I ended up where I am now. Not because I was in foster care, but because I believe that is in my pit of my soul who I am. So.
Continue with the story for a little bit, though. So your mom went through her trials. And would you stay in contact with her?
Off and on.
What did that look like? Did you meet with her? Did you talk to her on the phone?
Yeah, so they would do supervised visits. We would get supervised visits. Occasionally, she wouldn't show up for those supervised visits.
Where were those?
They would do them at the county, at the buildings, sometimes at the park, sometimes at McDonald's, kind of all over the place. As I got older, they would transition into unsupervised visits, only, not too often.
So you could actually go and do things with mom. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Was that limited by mom, or was it limited by the system that said you can't see her that much, or was it limited by you that I don't want to see her that often?
To be honest, I don't know. I think that until, I was 15 and told I couldn't talk to her, I just kind of went when they told me and did what I wanted. The state very much so, I know, dictated how things looked during that time, but I don't actually know who was in control.
You got some say in that, though, didn't you?
No.
Let me try this again. So you got some say in this, didn't you?
No.
I mean, it's your mom, and you want to see your mom, and your mom wanted to see you, I'm assuming, that otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And so you had complete and total control over that.
Yeah, no.
He throws up as a softball. But you were seeing your mom, and then one day you weren't.
Correct.
I want to focus on that.
Correct.
What happened between this day when I can see and talk to my mom and pick up the phone and call her to this day when I couldn't?
That is the $1 million question. I don't know. I have my speculations as to what happened and what led up to that day. I don't know.
Well, go back. How old were you when that happened?
I was 15.
All right, so go back to being 15. And what do you remember from the eyes of a 15-year-old?
I remember wanting to go home and constantly
home
voicing
being not,
to my
not,
mom.
not foster parents,
Right.
but home
to
your
my
mom.
And constantly voicing that I can do this. So I had this perspective that she may not be there all the time and she may not be doing what you want, but I've been doing this. I've been taking care of myself since I was 5. I know how to make myself dinner. I know how to do the dishes. I know how to do my laundry. I don't actually really need to be here. I could just be with my mom, save everybody some money, and the state some time. And so I was really, really, really very invested in the fact that I wanted to go home. I think my brother, who had some, pretty deep emotional battles that he was
older or
fighting.
younger?
He's younger than me. At the time, he also just wanted to go home. He showed that very differently than I did. And so I think leading up, that is what they heard. They asked if I wanted to be adopted. There was a point when I knew I was never going back home. The last time they brought my clothes in a trash bag to the school when I was a freshman in high school, I know it was a wrap. I knew
when you say I know it's a wrap, it means that despite your expressed wishes that you still want to be in contact with your mom, somebody made a decision that you can't.
Yeah. Not somebody, a room full of
somebodies.
Of somebody's.
Were you in that room full of somebody's?
I was not. I was at school.
So this, as a 15-year-old, which you're pretty self-aware, you're pretty self-directed, at 15, this decision that you cannot talk to your mom happens, and you were not even there.
I was not there, and nor did I know.
Was somebody there representing your viewpoint?
Not my viewpoint, no.
Really?
No. My best interest is what I hear, but not my viewpoint.
All right. Help me with this, because we're both parents. We know what it is to make a decision your kid doesn't like.
Yes.
And it's an obvious decision. No, you cannot climb that skyscraper. You're just not today, not going to happen. Why? It's in your best interest. Was it in your best interest? You'll never know, would you?
I won't.
You talked to your mom about this today?
Interesting. I talked to her about it yesterday. I told her I was coming down here to chat with you all, and she doesn't want to get involved. She's not interested. She's not interested in talking about it. To her, the past is the past, and we all need to leave it there and keep it moving. So,
do you think at 15 your viewpoint should have been represented? And I'm not somebody who's there to represent your best interest. Should you have had somebody in that room that says, I speak on her behalf. Makita wants this. Yes. I might agree with you guys, it's a terrible idea, but I'm advocating for my client. There is nobody like that, right?
No, there was not. And I strongly, in the pit of my soul, believe that I needed someone there. For many reasons. I well into my 20s, I never even actually knew the reason why. But more importantly, I think that my viewpoint was my ability to understand what is right and what's wrong and what I needed for me was underestimated and not taken into account. And furthermore, I think we didn't think about the long-term impact that had on me either.
What was that long-term impact?
I think, for a long time, in my journal, I wrote that day that I wish I could die. And so to reread that at 36 years old, read the 15-year-old me wanted to die because of a decision someone else made because of the amount of pain it caused me. I think that, in addition to that, it just,
Did you tell anybody that at the time? Was it, could you not express it, or was it that there was nobody there to hear it?
Okay, I did. I got on the phone with my guardian ad litem. Right after I found out, when I walked in that foster home, that I couldn't talk to my mom, I called her. And we talked for hours, and I vaguely remember the conversation. I remember telling her, I just need to talk to the judge. I just don't understand. At 15, once your head is, right? Once you're focused. So it didn't matter what she was saying. But we talked for a long time, and she was just pretty adamant that, it's not going to change right now. And so this is just the reality of it. And to be frank, if I got caught talking to my mom, I was facing jail time. It was contempt of court.
Whoa, damn it. Reverse there. If you got caught talking to your own mother, it was jail time for you?
Yes.
At 15?
Yes, it was a court order. I would be held in contempt of court. And the only way that at that time the county or the state would choose to exercise their power with teenagers was to throw them in the foot. So
the foot?
That's what it's called. I don't know if it's still around. I think it is, but it was called the foot. And every every kid I was ever in a foster home with had spent a day or two in there for some reason or another. And you can go in there for as small as like walking out of the door of your foster home without telling them first, to much bigger things, right? And so I faced jail time if I got caught talking to my mom.
Did you want to get adopted?
No, I did not.
You're very certain about that. Why
Yeah.
not? Because you were thinking for 15 different sets of foster parents,
Yeah.
maybe having one would be nice.
I never, right, that is true. I grew up only needing me. I didn't need anybody else. I was a pretty self-sufficient kid, which I think is what helped me to be able to transition into adulthood. But family was never big for me. I had my grandfather and my grandmother, and my mom and my brother. And my family was not super close. They did not, lots of family feuds. So family to me meant nothing. I just needed a place to stay.
Were you able to spend time with your brother? Were you in the same home?
We were not. We were in two different homes. We were in the same home until I was about 13. And then we separated homes.
Did you want to separate?
I did not want to. But what I was tired of doing was watching foster parents restrain my brother, who would get so mad, they would restrain him. And if I reacted, right, like, again, the consequences were pretty steep. So
was there ever a feeling that, wait a second, I didn't break any laws. I was not found guilty of a crime. I've never been indicted of anything. I've never been up to the stand. But yet my life is under control. I don't want to say jail-like or prison-like, because obviously it's different, very different, but that you have no real advocacy and your mom can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It must be completely disempowering.
It is, and it's something that you take with you into your adulthood. It is very disempowering. And I think the other thing that I regularly struggled with is I felt like I was being punished for someone else's life choices. My mom was a drug dealer. I went in foster care in the 90s. Think about all of the bills that came into the 90s, and being a black girl, the daughter of a black woman who was a drug addict and a drug user, we had no weight. I was always told I was going to be like her. That was just what the world saw me as. So it didn't matter because the path was already laid out for me. I just needed to follow it or stay on the path that I was given until I could go follow the one that the world thought I was supposed to.
Finish this up on what you just said. You're not supposed to be doing what you're doing now. Being a mom of three great kids, working a professional job you're doing, none of that was supposed to happen given the setup you had of an unstable family life, 15 different foster homes, a brother with some issues. What was different? And can it be repeated by other people? Was it just that you had something, a drive in you, or is what you were able to accomplish, is that something other foster kids could accomplish if they would follow whatever steps?
I think it's a little bit of both. It is a little bit of who I am. I have always, when I was 5, I wanted to be a judge. I used to play court and had all the things. So I always knew very early on that I had these big dreams. Judge now? No, thank you. I'm good. But I wanted to be a judge. I think the other thing is that I never settled. I never let what someone said to me be the end all be all. And so whether you agreed with me or not, I found my way to court. I started to find out the court dates and find my way to court. I made my voice as loud as possible. Did it work? Never. Never did my loud voice work. Not one time did I stand in front of a courtroom and get my way.
Really?
Not one time.
When were you free? I mean, when was it like, I am out of this system, I am on my own, to hell with all of you?
I was 8, it was like August, I turned 18 on August 7th, August 8th, I was in the courtroom like, I am done. You can have every dollar you've ever given me. You can have whatever it is you need back from me. I am done.
Then what did you do?
I had a baby. I went to college. I went and got my paralegal. I got my associate's degree as a paralegal and became a paralegal. I actually ended up being a paralegal with my guardian ad litem, doing dependency and neglect for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I did that. Then I got...
And the tuition, I'm assuming, was paid for by the state
It
because
was
you were...
not.
Wait. It's my understanding that foster kids can go to state schools
Now they can.
for free.
They could not then. I have so much student loan debt because no one also told me what that meant when you were signing those papers.
At 18.
Yeah. When you were like, oh, this is how I pay for school and you're going to give me a little extra money to like keep a roof over my son's head? Sure, I'll take it. Because I just wasn't taught those things. So no, I did not. The things that I see transforming for our youth today is something I just wish I had access to. And grateful that even though I didn't have access to it, I am who I am, but it will make me no longer an anomaly. It will make me the norm, or, you know, like.
It's funny, a cousin of mine who's gay, my age, was talking about coming out, and his father was military. It was not an easy time. And he said, what, these damn kids now, they've got gay and lesbian clubs in their high schools? And he was like, we didn't have any of that stuff. We had to do it old school.
Yeah.
You did it old school.
I did.
This has been really wonderful. You're just such a shining example, and I'm glad you're involved in spreading the word.
Thank you. I'm very, very excited to be a part of it.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.